not that he is truly questioning it. It is a pattern of summoning them to think that way. And it's interesting because the promise of a son for Sarah this time next year, it was that word, that phrase, about this time next year, actually means the time where it is reviving, or typically used for spring, meaning at the same time next year. So it's a little confusing, but it's emphasizing the contrast between Sarah saying, my body's worn out, and that worn out is like worn out like a garment being worn out, and God promising that she will be renewed with youth. These are all kind of like, for one thing, when you translate Hebrew into English, it's not word for word. So it's like phraseology and meaning. So, but apparently this is the first time that Sarah had heard of this, and she has an identical response to Abraham, where she just laughs about it to the Lord. Then she lies that she laughed, and God said, oh, no, you did. So Abraham's going to raise his kids to do what is just and right before the Lord and to follow the Lord, and God is going to fulfill his promise. We saw the walking through the pieces, which, by the way, where is that? I wanted to talk to y'all about that. Oh, that's not it. The walking through the pieces was a binding commitment, if you will, of whoever walks through the pieces. Remember the pieces of animals, and the pot, the fiery pot, and the torch went between it. Whoever goes between the pieces, they're bound to the commitment of what is made at that time. And is it? Oh, I really wanted to cover that with y'all. Hold on. You know what? I will do a separate study on that, about covenant and walking through the pieces, and that the one who walks through the pieces is the one who is bound to the covenant, agreeing to be committed to the covenant. It was God. I think it's interesting that God gave a covenant that he bound himself to. And we're going to see another time that God does that. I also want to talk about circumcision a little more. I think some people got a little confused on that, so we'll do that. So we'll do some side studies. Okay, so let's keep going. So the Lord said there was an outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah so great and so sinful and so grievous that it caused God to say, I'm going to send someone down. So he sends some men, and we know they are angels. And also the power of God himself. Men turned away and went towards Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Now the men are the two angels, or the men. Then Abraham approached him, saying, will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? You look at those next few lines, and he is questioning God. And in verse 25, he says, far be it from you to do such a thing. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? I was just amazed when I thought, wow. And the Lord said, if I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for that sake. And Abraham spoke up again. He says, now that I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes, what if the number of righteous is 5 less than 50? This goes on to be almost like a back and forth negotiation between Abraham and God. And Abraham is fighting on behalf, or petitioning on behalf of the people to God, saying, don't kill them all. You know, just get the bad ones. And so it goes down to 45, then 40, then 35, and then verse 31, it's down to 20. In verse 32, it says, let me speak just once more, Lord. Keep in mind, he's being reverent to the Lord. He recognizes who he is, and he's being humble, but he's also being very bold in the things he's asking of God. And And God ends up saying in the latter part of verse 32, he answered, for the sake of 10, I will not destroy it. In verse 33, it says, and the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, and he left. And Abraham returned home. Okay, so now we're in chapter 19. The two angels arrived at Sodom in the evening. Lot was sitting in the gateway of the city. Now you keep here and realize that Lot, well, a couple of things are fixing to happen I'm not crazy about, but Lot is in the city now, right? In the gateway of the city. My Lord, he says, please turn aside to your servant's house so you can wash your feet and spend the night, and then go on your way to the morning. Again, here's this thing that's very prevalent in the Jewish faith at this time, that it is a very big deal. Hospitality is a very huge deal, that you are hospitable right, that there's a righteousness in it, and that you do it right, that anyone who comes to your Lord you treat in this way, comes to your home. So now we're very clear that this is Lot's home, Sodom. Okay. So he says, then go on your way early in the morning. No, they answered. Remember before, they said, yes, we'll go ahead and eat with you, Abraham. Here, to Lot, they said, no, we will spend the night in the square. These are spiritual beings, and yet they have human form about them. Okay, so these angels are going to spend the night in the square. And I don't mean in a hotel in the square. I mean on the ground in the square. And what's the square? Is it just like the squares we know now, the center at the city center? And is it a hotel room? Like a room in the inn? It doesn't say. But Lot insisted so strongly that they did go with him, and they entered his house. So maybe it was an inn they were going to stay in. So they appeared to be humans. And we know that angels can do that. So, all right. But, he prepared a meal for them, baking bread without yeast, and they ate it before. The angels are now eating. Before they had gone to bed, all the men from every part of the city of Sodom, both young and old, get this, surrounded the house, and they called out to Lot, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us so we can have sex with them. That's how bad it had gotten. The men of the city, young and old, had said, hey, bring those men out. And some translations say those beautiful men. They were very attractive. The angels were apparently very attractive. And they said, we want to have sex with them. So it was very simple for these men to want to have sex with these other men. I will leave that in your brain to think about that. In verse 6, Lot went outside and shut the door behind him and said, no, my friends, don't do this wicked thing. Look, I have 2 daughters who've never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do with them what you like. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Do you see the importance of hospitable provision to travelers? Not only that, he knows they're angels of God. Not only that, I'm sitting here, I'll never forget the first time that I read this, that he would offer up his daughters basically to be raped by all the men in the city, young and old, rather than these 2 angels who could clearly defend themselves. I really struggled when I read this. But Lot has established himself in the heart of this wicked city, so it makes you wonder right there. And then he's trying to get that guilt off of him. He offers his daughters, but sexual perversion is common at this point in the Canaanite culture and in religious rites of things that went on, and certainly in this city. But Lot is reflecting the effects of Sodom on his own morality here. And sexual violence is condemned in Genesis 34. We'll talk about that. As well as in the rest of the Old Testament history. Lot is rescued out of this whole situation, not because Lot is any good at this point, but just because of his relationship to Abraham and Abraham's intercession for him. Sound like anybody you know? What about our being that we are not good? Only God is good. But we are saved, not of ourselves or anything good about us, but our relationship to Jesus Christ and his intercession for us. God is just setting up this story. You couldn't write this. When people say, oh, that's just no, you could not make this come together like it does. You can't. It's just amazing. So anyway, the people in town said, get out of our way. This fellow came here as a foreigner, and now he wants to play the judge. We'll treat you worse than them. So the people in town are not for Lot either. Even though he's acting like them, they're not for him. They're like, you're a foreigner. Get out of our way. We'll do the same to you or worse. They kept bringing pressure on Lot and moved towards breaking down the door, but the men inside, this is interesting, reached out and pulled Lot back into the house and shut the door. They're supernatural beings that are fixing to do supernatural things, and yet they do it this way. It's very interesting. Then they struck the men. Here's one. Then they struck the men, young and old, who were at the door of the house with blindness, so they could not find the door. They couldn't see the door. They couldn't continue. It's like, why didn't you strike them with something else? So forget the door. Just they'd all die or something. Keep reading. Then the two men said to Lot, do you have anyone else, sons-in-laws, sons or daughters, or anyone else in the city who belong to you? Get them out of here, because we're going to destroy this place. The outcry to the Lord against its people is so great that he has sent us. He has sent us to destroy it. These are supernatural beings. That's why the way that this all happens, I'm like, and why are you asking who else is here? Don't you know? Didn't God kind of tell you who else was there? Remember, God has a habit of asking these kind of questions, and he's doing it this time through these two angels. This pattern of summoning an answer that he already knows. It's not like God is caught off guard, and he doesn't know the answer. It's that he's summoning the answer from them. In other words, maybe making them think about those answers. In other words, you're going to make the call on this. So he went outside and spoke to his sons-in-laws who were pledged to marry his daughters. He says, hurry, get out of here. And the sons-in-laws thought he was joking. That doesn't seem fair, because I think that it would be normal to think that he's crazy.